The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
So I am going to do what you guys pay me to do. How about that? My patrons and even people who just watch and subscribe, you pay to hear me tell the truth. And I think that's evident because most of you have been with me all 4 years when I go through major swings and I follow the truth, even if it seems contradictory. So I don't have to pretend as though I don't believe I'm going to lose a single patron over this. I don't believe I'm going to lose a single fan over this, because if you are truly my fan and you're truly a supporter, I don't even like that word fan. If you're truly a supporter and you have been a patron with me this long, then you expect nothing but the truth from me, even if it makes you upset. Okay. I believe firmly that my fellow Bernie supporters, I think that you guys are starting to lose the plot. And I think that there is a level of obsession that is being driven through social media around the primaries prematurely. And this is what I mean. Not a single vote has been cast. The Working Families Party ballot, everyone wants to see it. That's fine. If you want to ask to see it, that's fine. But I can tell you firsthand that they organized, the Warren team organized. Now, I know that there was a push on Reddit to get Bernie supporters to go and vote for Bernie in the Working Families Party ballot. But I know firsthand, because people reached out to me. They didn't reach out to me to talk about it on my show. As you can see, I didn't talk about it on my show, but they reached out to me personally and said, would I consider participating in the poll and voting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if I vote, would I vote for Warren? Elizabeth Warren. Now, I'm not going to disclose whether I participated or not because, well, that's nobody's business. And I'm not going to say who I voted for if it is the case that I participated. But I was thoroughly impressed because I got multiple calls, multiple text messages with one-on-one personal relationships, people I've known through the last couple of years of political participation, people I've met, different folks who used to be on Team Bernie. Some of them actually literally were on Team Bernie, reaching out to me to say, Dixon, we want you to participate in this poll. And then I talked to them about it and they said, we're contacting everybody we know. We're making phone calls. We are sending text messages. We're going personal, person to person to person in order to convince people that Elizabeth Warren is the right person. Now, I don't know if that happened on the Bernie side, but I can tell you that I did not get a single text message, not a single phone call, not an email, nothing about supporting Bernie Sanders in that same poll. Not that I'm the end all to be all, but if I was contacted by multiple people who were formerly supporters of Bernie Sanders, mind you, and they contacted me in order to support Elizabeth Warren, and I got none, that lets you know, at least to me, that there was greater organizing on the side of Elizabeth Warren. This is where I really don't care about the campaigns and the elections, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen, because whoever has the best team is going to win. And if this is any indication of the organizing, that the type of the personal relationships, the calling in of favors and saying, listen, I know, Ben, you were a huge Bernie supporter, but listen, I want you to consider Elizabeth Warren because of X, Y, and Z. Folks, that's how you win elections. You don't win elections by arguing on social media. You win elections by picking up the phone and calling the people you know and telling them to participate. Now, this was just a Working Families endorsement. But I have every reason to believe that there was no conspiracy there. And if there's no conspiracy there, there's literally no reason for everyone to be losing their shit over the fact that Elizabeth Warren won that endorsement. You just got out organized. Moral of the story, don't let it happen again. Pick up the gosh darn phone. I'm not going to make this a explicit episode. Pick up your phone, and every opportunity that you have, call somebody and convince them that why Bernie Sanders is the man. That's part one. All of this is stemming from, and I'm seeing, people use the words conspiracy and cover up, and people are working themselves. People meaning Bernie Sanders supporters. I am, as much as I love Elizabeth Warren, as I've said on this show multiple times, I am still voting for Bernie Sanders because she is crystal clear. He is rather crystal clear on Medicare for all. He's crystal clear on college free counseling student debt and then making college tuition free. He's crystal clear with his housing plan that he just put out. So I am still a supporter of Bernie Sanders. But folks, I'm not going to play this game this year. This derangement that really we had gotten rid of. We got rid of a lot of the derangement. Do you realize? And here's what and I'm not saying this to be ableist or to insult people, but how over the last 3 years, we have shed quite a few people who turned out to be nothing but rabble rousers, people who just wanted to inflame the situation. We lost the H.A. Goodmans, I forgot that other lady's name, who turned out to just be a full-blown Trump supporter. We've lost people who have gone over to not only Donald Trump, but we've lost an entire contingency that's going to support Andrew Yang, and then we've lost a whole nother contingency that's gone to support Tulsi Gabbard. And to me, good riddance. Because they were stirring up a level of frenzy, getting everyone into a tizzy. I did not intend to rhyme. But they're working up and they're constantly banging the drums of some conspiracy. And all of a sudden, that the derangement has come back into the Bernie camp. And I say to you, rebuke it. If I could use my religious jargon, get that mess out of here. All that has to happen now for Bernie to win the nomination is for him to out-organize everyone else. And I knew for a fact, you can go back to any of my podcasts, that it was going to come down to Warren and Sanders, and then it's going to come down to whose team is organizing the best. And I can tell you from firsthand experience from this Working Families poll, I did not hear a single thing from a single Bernie supporter out of all the tweets on social media. I have 40 something thousand, followers, and I interact with my followers, right? I mean, most of you, if you make me laugh and we have like a couple of good exchanges, I'm going to follow you too. You know, most people can attest to that. I follow people back. I don't just follow them for no reason. I follow them if they have a good exchange. And in all of the exchanges that I've had, out of all the laughter that we've had, out of all the memes and all the gifts and all the, going back and forth, not a single Bernie supporter asked me if I was going to participate in that poll. But I got about 6 text messages, 3 phone calls, and a face-to-face about organizing for Elizabeth Warren. That is how you win elections. Now, another thing, there's an article that came out that said that there are ex-Bernie supporters who are now supporting Elizabeth Warren. And I see a lot of people online, on Twitter, while you didn't. And again, if you're a true supporter of mine, you're not going to leave because I'm telling you this. I'm telling you this because I love you. No, I really do. I really do. I see people working themselves into a tizzy because they're like, no, they're trying to manufacture consent. There's no such thing as ex-Bernie supporters. First of all, that's the language of a cult. OK, I hate to use that and call that, but it is most certainly at a minimum, if not a full blown cult, it is certain. If it's not the language of a full blown cult, because I don't want anyone to misconstrue what I'm saying, it is certainly the language of a cult of personality. It is totally possible for you to no longer support Bernie Sanders and go to Elizabeth Warren. Not only is it possible, I know them. I know these people. I know people who literally worked on Bernie Sanders' campaign who said they would never work for him again. I won't go into the reasons why, because it's not my business to put their business out there. You can believe me or you cannot believe me, or you can get engaged with the people who are organizing and find out for yourself why. But here's a reason why you might want to consider. I was a part of Run Warren Run back in 2015. I pushed. I love Elizabeth Warren. I wanted her to be the nominee. I was disappointed that she didn't step up against Hillary Clinton. And I only mentioned that again for like the umpteenth time for you to understand that there are a lot of people who were with Warren before they were with Bernie. So does it not make sense to you that there are going to people who say, hey, I love Bernie, but I was with Warren first. Come on, folks. There are people, and I'm going to talk about this in the next clip, right after the music settles my soul a little bit. There are people who are intentionally inflaming the situation, creating and exacerbating the divide between Warren supporters and Bernie Sanders supporters. Now, what are their motivations? I will formulate them and we'll discuss them, right? I'll pull it out of thin air based on my best observations as to why I think people are intentionally doing this. I think there's about 3 categories of people who are intentionally trying to make sure that Warren and Sanders can never unite. And those are the people I see inflaming the situation, making you believe that Elizabeth Warren is nothing more than Hillary Clinton. Or like one person said, Elizabeth Warren was no better than John Bolton. Like, for the love of God, can we not allow that level of derangement to divide and conquer us when it is most critical for Bernie and Warren to work together and win together? Whoever is at the top of the ticket will depend on who has the best campaign and who organizes the best. And the first round, unfortunately, it went to Elizabeth Warren with the Working Families poll. It did. And I say unfortunately because I am a Sanders supporter. All right. When I come back, we're going to talk about the 3 reasons I think people want to exacerbate the divide between Sanders and Warren.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Okay, I said 3 reasons, but I think it possibly is 4. I'm going to start by giving people the benefit of the doubt. There are those of us who sincerely see the differences between Warren and Sanders. We see that Warren has shifted quite a bit on Medicare for all, and we need clarity on that. That's my category. My category is I need Elizabeth Warren to give me clarity, because I supported her before I supported Sanders. Quite frankly, I really like her. And I like her as a politician. I like her as a leader. I like her as a planner. But I need to know, Liz, what the hell is going on with your Medicare for all plan? Because quite frankly, that is the most important issue for me. I have no intention of ever paying back my, I shouldn't say this on the air. They're going to hold it against me. No, Sally Mae, you think you got me. I'm not going to be that honest, whether y'all cancel student loan debt or not. I'm going to have to wait till I get $1 million advance on a book deal before I can pay my student loans. So that's not the most important issue to me. The most important issue is Medicare for all, because as most people understand, being in between jobs and getting sick can bankrupt you. Hell, being on a job with one of those plans can still bankrupt you depending on how sick you get. So Liz, I need you to clarify that. So the first group I have to give the benefit of the doubt. There are those of us who are genuinely concerned that Elizabeth Warren is wavering on her progressivism, not as a cliche, but on some not progressivism as a cliche, but on issues that are critical, namely Medicare for all. If she clarifies that for me, then who knows? But for right now, I'm still a Sanders supporter. That's number 1. Number 2, there's a second group that would benefit. And I want you to think about this. The people who would benefit from there being a divide between Warren and Sanders. Now, as much as I loathe conspiracy theories, this one's not really a conspiracy theory. It's a strategy that would be employed, that I would employ. This is something I would do. If I was on Team Biden and I was an establishment person, Democrat, and I did not want Warren and I did not want Sanders, what would I do? I would split those 2 people so far down the line. I would make it so toxic for them to participate, for them to lean on each other, I would make it almost impossible for them to be friendly through the rest of these primaries so that I could skate right on through. The progressive vote is divided and polarized, and the establishment vote just waltzes right on through. Easy. Divide and conquer. Standard colonizer tactic. Standard tactic. And I guarantee you some of that is at play. You don't believe me? Listen, if you think for 1 second, actually, pause, rewind. I shouldn't have to convince you of how nefarious these people are, because you all are always trying to convince me of how nefarious they are, because you imagine or you suggest that they concoct these unbelievable conspiracies in order to. Some of you thought that Hillary Clinton had Seth Rich killed. So I shouldn't have to convince you that it is quite easy for them to divide Sanders and Warren in order to help your boy Joe Biden get the nomination. That's 2. Number 3, who else could benefit from this? And this is what someone said on it was either the Young Turks or MSNBC. Those sets are starting to look alike. But they said Donald Trump supporters, MAGA. Yes, they have every incentive, because they know, like we know, like everyone seems to know except the establishment, that Joe Biden is absolutely the best person to run up against Donald Trump in order for Donald Trump to win again. Now, can I tell you from firsthand experience that we have had on our side, we have had Democrats, establishment Democrats, pose. I'm not making this up. People can vouch for this. Pose as conservatives on social media just for the purposes of dividing conservatives. Obviously, it didn't work in 2016. But it is not so far gone. It is not such a conspiracy that to think that these people, some of these people who are demanding that you be Bernie or bust, aren't motivated by either supporting Joe Biden or motivated by supporting Donald Trump, because the result is ultimately going to be the same. They need Joe Biden to be the nominee. Joe Biden needs to be the nominee for Joe Biden's ego. Joe Biden's team needs Joe Biden to be the nominee for their job's sake. And Donald Trump needs Joe Biden to be the nominee so he can easily win, because he's not going to win against Bernie and he's not going to win against Warren. That's number 2. Number 3, I believe this one might be the simplest. It's good for cliques. It is a safe bet that you can continue to build your career if you get in lockstep with Bernie Sanders, because there's an infrastructure around Bernie Sanders that you absolutely can benefit from if you go all in for Bernie Sanders, whether you be just on social media or whether you be a media personality. It is simply the case. And quite the corollary is the fact that if you speak out against Bernie Sanders or have anything to critique Bernie Sanders about, there is an overwhelming infrastructure of people who you either lose as a supporter, lose as a patron, or you just get hounded on social media. I mean, these are facts. Yes, you're saying, well, Ben, everybody has that kind of thing. Well, yes and no. Donald Trump certainly has that kind of thing. But nobody else on the left has that type of infrastructure. I mean, if you go to Reddit, they're not Reddits with 400,000 people who support Elizabeth Warren or Joe Biden. I know that is reflective of the organizing power. Yes, I get that. But it's also reflective of the type of infrastructure that you benefit from if you are, say, a media personality who would go all the way in for Bernie Sanders and just become a Bernie Sanders channel all day long. I did it in 2016. I did. And then I said, you know what? I'm not doing it anymore. Because I'm not that dude, guys. I'm not that guy who just like kind of falls in line with the cult of person. I'm the guy who will literally walk in the opposite direction just because the crowd is going one way. I might get carried away for a few minutes, but it only takes a few minutes for me to realize, you know what? I'm going the opposite direction. I guess maybe just to be a contrarian, perhaps, but also because I'm allergic to cults of personality. And whereas I could be this third group that I'm describing, the third group who would benefit from exacerbating the divide between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, I could benefit from being in that group, particularly on the side of Bernie Sanders. I mean, do you know? I mean, really, who's the black media champion for Bernie Sanders right now? I mean, hell, maybe I'm dumb here. I need to get my patronage up. Maybe I should just shift gears and just go all Bernie. And, you know, and how better to go all Bernie than to slam Warren. And I'm black. Man, I'll get my subscribers up so quick. But as you can tell, over the last 4 years, that's not me. But there is a group who benefit from it and exacerbate it, particularly on social media. That's number 3. The fourth group are those people who I described earlier. They've already left to go to Tulsi Gabbard. They already left, and they're exacerbating, inflaming the situation on social media because their groups benefit from it directly, more so than any other group. You can get people from Bernie to Tulsi because now there's a Tulsi or bust movement. There are people who look at Bernie Sanders and say he's just not progressive enough. He's not the real deal. Tulsi Gabbard is a real deal. There is an entire movement around that. There's quite a few people who have moved from Bernie Sanders to Andrew Yang because they didn't like Bernie Sanders' shift towards identity politics, and Andrew Yang is not going to pander to identity politics using their language, quote unquote. Those people absolutely benefit from exacerbating the divide between the two, because you know what they're going to do? They're going to point out everything bad about Bernie. They're going to point out everything bad about Warren, and they're going to throw salt in the game on both sides. And they're going to sit back and say, here, come to Mother Tulsi, because she is the true progressive. Come to Andrew Yang because we need those freedom dividends. That's all that matters. You might think it sounds like a stretch, but stranger things happen every single day, all day. More nefarious plans and plots happen all day long. And I think it is quite the reason I'm discussing this is because of the level of furor, the uproar, the level of intense derangement around the primaries that have not yet kicked off in earnest, and it's all pointed towards Elizabeth Warren. And here's the thing. Here's a fallacy in the arguments. The argument is that Elizabeth Warren is not a substitute for Bernie Sanders because their policies are so different. I don't buy that, but that's the argument that's made by Bernie Sanders supporters. But if that's the case, why be concerned about Elizabeth Warren at all when she's not the person who's going to be pulling votes from you, right? Logically, the people who are going to pull votes from you are the people who you think are most closely aligned with Bernie Sanders. And quite honestly, that would be Tulsi supporters and Andrew Yang supporters. According to your own logic, it's certainly not going to be Joe Biden supporters, right? And you don't feel like Elizabeth Warren is a substitute. So if Elizabeth Warren is not a substitute for Bernie Sanders, who is the real threat for pulling votes away from Bernie Sanders, causing him to lose the primaries? Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard. And they have a similar type of following that is insisting that if you don't vote for Tulsi, we're going to throw everything. It's Tulsi or bust. It's freedom dividends or bust. This is madness, everybody. This is madness, and I have to speak on it because what good am I if I'm not going to speak on it? You know what? If you're here for the truth, so I'm going to keep giving you the truth. The truth is that Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, whoever gets on the top of the ticket depends on who organizes the best. They are our best chance for a progressive government, and we need them both. We don't need either or. We need them both. Because think about how progressive Barack Obama claimed to be. His first mistake was appointing Rahm Emanuel to be his chief of staff. It was over with at that point. His second mistake was he did not galvanize the revolution that was there waiting. You may argue he didn't want to. Fine. But if Bernie Sanders becomes president, who's going to maintain and galvanize that movement across the country? We need him governing. So you got to have somebody in the number 2 spot who can pound the pavement. We don't need him to do like Donald Trump. Donald Trump does more rallies than he does governing, thankfully. But we need the revolution to stay mobilized. We need the 1-2 punch of Warren and Sanders. And really, it's going to come down to who's going to out-organize them. Really, it is. And seriously, last but not least, I think, and I really believe that these polling numbers around Joe Biden are not going to be sustainable. They're not going to last because Joe Biden is showing himself to be extremely feckless. The real question is going to be how soon can we get rid of Joe Biden, and then where do those supporters go? That's the real question. All right, one more side of this that I have to discuss. Yeah, I'm going to discuss it. Win, lose, or draw. Win, lose, or draw. supporters, subscribers, and patrons. We're going to discuss it. Okay. All right, let's talk. Before I do, I want to tell you two things. Number one, patrons get ad-free versions of this content. If you become a patron, you'll get an ad-free version of our podcast. And we do run quite a few ads on these podcasts because we need to make the money. Number two, I want to thank our latest patrons. Peter I, thank you very much. Gerald W, thank you very much. Gerald W, thank you very much. Tyler P, thank you very much for becoming a patron. We can't do this without you. Go to www.patreon.com/the BPD show to get bonus content as well as ad-free content. Okay, something I've been thinking about. I made the argument personally. I want to call myself out first. I saw a tweet this morning that really kind of dismissed anyone who would turn away from Bernie Sanders because of Bernie Sanders supporters. And I've actually made that argument myself in the last month or two, pretty recently. And the argument goes that it's really ridiculous and childish. This is what I said. It's pretty childish if you would walk away from somebody who has better policies for you just because you don't like the supporters. I generally kind of still feel that way with one exception. There's a great exception. I know, and we all know, people who, I think it was it Gandhi who said, yeah, it was Gandhi. He said, I like your Christ. I do not like your Christians. Your Christians are so unlike your Christ. Now, never mind the fact that Gandhi had some serious problems and maybe I shouldn't quote him, but it actually resonated with me when I thought about this again, and I have to correct myself. It's actually pretty reasonable for people to say, I might like his policies, but his supporters are so whatever, fill in the blank, that I just don't want, I can't stand side by side with them. I mean, think about it. I literally know plenty of you, because I'm one of you, who would rather go to hell if it exists, right, than to go to heaven with evangelicals, Trump evangelicals, conservative right, the moral majority. Like, we would literally rather spend the rest of eternity burning in hell than to be around those people, no matter how good we think Christ himself may be. And you might say, oh, well, then that's just absolutely ridiculous. But think about it. We have the right to choose who we want to be around. And we have not only who we want to be around, but who we want to empower. And think of it this way. As far as politics is concerned, I guarantee you there's got to be a study, a behavioral science study that it analyzes our scope and our perception of politics. This is what I mean. For us, for people who are not actively in, running for office or organizing or whatever, or active in politics, we're active on social media. Our political existence is on social media. And so why would you want to see someone who is the bane of your existence on social media be empowered with a political victory? Now, you may say, you might dismiss that as something as frivolous, as childish as you could. But listen, most people's social media activity is based around owning somebody else. Like, winning some points against somebody else. Is this right? Is this the enlightened thing? Is this what we want from our society? Probably not. But is it a reality? Yeah. Think about it. You logged on today so that you could get back at somebody else. You did. Somebody said something in one of your mentions in the last week, and you went and you made sure that you gave them a piece of your mind, and you wanted to win the argument. Now think about it. Do you want that person to have a political victory over you? It may sound childish, but it is a reality. I think it's a reality enough for us to take it into consideration. And that's just one side of the argument. The other side of the argument is, why do you expect for you to be able to be a complete prick on social media and then expect those people to support you? Because you are a representative of whoever you're supporting. You are the only Bernie Sanders that they are going to see. There's a song by Kirk Franklin. It's a gospel song that talks about, let me see if I can quote it. If I say I love Jesus, but you can't see my Jesus, something, I'm the only Jesus people can see. And if people see me and I'm a complete asshat, You know what I mean? Why on earth would they want to follow my Jesus? And no, I know the comparison is kind of wild. I'm not saying Bernie Sanders is Jesus. I'm saying that if you're willing to not become a Christian because you hate how Christians behave and you would literally rather go to hell, then doesn't it make sense that there's going to be a group of people who do not want to support your candidate, be it Warren, be it Sanders, be it Clinton? Hell, I could not stand Hillary Clinton supporters back in 2016. I couldn't. I hated the fact that she won the primary. Not only because I wanted Bernie Sanders to win because of policy, but also because of the scorched earth, just tooth and nail, pulling people apart by the limbs type of politics that went down on social media. I never met Hillary Clinton a day in my life, but I met all of her representatives online and couldn't stand 99% of them. Same thing with Donald Trump. Come on, I'm building the case. Same thing with Donald Trump. Would you want to be in a coalition side by side by Trumpers? Never mind policy. Just think about the personality and the people that you would have to deal with. So I've thought about this thing and I've changed my mind. I used to think that it was completely foolish and childish to not want to support a candidate because of their supporters. I still think it's a little foolish and a little childish, but I honestly can see the reasoning behind it. And I can honestly see that I have exhibited the same exact behavior with regard to Hillary Clinton supporters, with regard to Donald Trump supporters, and with regard to, quite frankly, Christians. I would rather go to hell than to be in heaven with evangelicals who treat people here on earth like shit. So I think there's some validity to it. Is that a good argument? I mean, is my dad looking down from heaven like, Ben, come on, don't say no shit like that. Come on, man. Come on. Get up here. I don't know. Probably not. It doesn't matter. But the fact of the matter is whether or not it's childish and foolish. And I do think it is childish and foolish. Human nature is a bitch. And human nature says, if I don't like you, I don't like who you're supporting. Keep that in mind. And last but not least, if I could put a fine point on this, you feel the same way about Hillary supporters. You feel the same way about Warren supporters. You feel the same way about anyone. You don't like the way they act and behave. You're less likely to support their candidate. It is true, whether we think it's foolish or not. That's my music. That's my time. I'll see you tomorrow.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.